What's going on, everybody? My name is Dallas. Thanks for clicking on my video. As you could tell by the title, today's video is going to be breaking down the 5 best cities in Oregon for short-term rentals, Airbnb, VRBO. Pulled my data primarily from AirDNA. It was recommended by Bigger Pockets, Tony J. Robinson and his wife, Sarah, as a good source to pull data from. And obviously, Airbnb is the #1 platform for short-term rentals, so you're able to get a pretty good picture of what's going on in the market. I think that the best number it shows is the nightly rate, which won't really change much between different sites, and if anything would be higher on Airbnb. So that is good to keep in mind. I also pitted these numbers against what the entry price would be in that particular market. So if you see one that has a higher revenue that's ranked lower on the list, it's likely because the cost to purchase in that market is equally higher or disproportionately higher towards the other one, and that's why some of those were balanced out. So without further ado, let's get started with number 5 on the list. And number 5, we have Dundee, Oregon. So Dundee has a really high nightly rate, as you can see. The occupancy is where it lacks a little bit, but keep in mind we're not seeing the full picture. I have a feeling that Dundee is a more prime VRBO market, just because VRBO seems to have more unique experience, niche kind of stuff going on, more full house, multiple people renting one house situation. So that's where I think we have skewed data there. As you can see, the monthly revenue is still pretty high. And Dundee, relative to the whole West Portland suburbs, is a super affordable city, really close to Newburgh, which has George Fox University. So a lot of different factors going in as to why Dundee is a really strong market. Pretty close to Portland, pretty close to the beaches. So all in all, right there, that's why Dundee is pretty strong. Moving on to number 4, we have Forest Grove, Oregon. So again, you can see not as strong of a nightly rate, but a super strong occupancy rate. 90% is, crazy high, especially when it comes to AirDNA, because it's not necessarily factoring in all the listings. So if VRBO has a night, it's not necessarily factoring in those couple of VRBO nights. Not that many people multi-manage, but there are softwares and benefits to having all that listings out there, or all those listings out there, as opposed to just penciling yourself down to Airbnb. But Forest Grove is a similar story to Dundee in that there's wine country. There's a college in the town, so instead of being a neighboring town, it's in the same town. So it has the college, and then it's really close to Hillsborough and Beaverton. It's a straight line, 15 and 25 minutes, apart between Hillsborough and then Beaverton. And that's where a lot of the jobs are within the, Portland suburb market. All Nike, Intel, Adidas, Columbia. It's all Hillsborough, Beaverton, as well as some smaller tech companies are starting to come over here, especially in Hillsborough. So those are the reasons that attribute to that really high occupancy while still maintaining a pretty good rate. And comparatively speaking, not only is the AirDNA occupancy and nightly rates way better than Beaverton and Hillsborough, but it's much cheaper to get into a Forest Grove home than it is to those Beaverton and Hillsboroughs. Very similar story to Dundee. Forest Grove is just a little bit closer to the action of jobs, and that's not necessarily a direct correlation to short-term renters, but when they're big enough companies like Nike and Intel, you see a lot of contract employees. And of course, if there's multiple hospitals too and colleges, you see a lot of contract work where a lot of times the employers will pay for an Airbnb at whatever the nightly rate is for months on end. So that is a factor that goes into why you see those high occupancies and why it's just a little bit above Dundee on my list. And number 3, we have Bend, Oregon. So Bend is Central Oregon, a little bit further away than our other 2 cities, which are more so the West Portland suburbs, extended, if you will. But Bend, Oregon is awesome. It's where most of the money's at. in Oregon. A lot of people go there to retire. There's some famous people there that have retired, like ex-NFL football players, their kids and family all live in Bend, Oregon. Multiple golf courses, outdoor recreation, wineries, breweries, a lot of stuff going on in Bend. It's a really cool place to vacation, and it's gone up a little bit in price. So I'd say it's getting there in terms of, certain pockets are pretty expensive in Bend, and just in general, the home prices aren't as low as they used to be. So with that said, it's could have been higher on the list because of all the stuff that's going on, but at the same time, it's the prices of purchase have gone up pretty significantly. So that's why it's landed at more the number 3 spot. Another cool thing to note about Bend, if you're an Oregon real estate investor, is that it qualifies for a second home mortgage if you live in Portland, Salem. It's over that 50-mile mark, which is required to be from your primary residence to qualify for a second home mortgage, and also in every other market too you invest in. So once you invest in Bend, 50 miles goes up around there, and you can't get a second home mortgage in both those locations, but you can then get one in another state or another market that's far enough away. So that's really important to note. So if you're in Portland, Salem, Bend is a great option that's outside of the second home mortgage realm that you can shoot for, which is pretty cool. Let's move to number 2, which I have Mount Hood. Mount Hood has a really high nightly rate, pretty good occupancy. Revenues are super high. The reason it lands here, based on what I'm seeing on AirDNA, is there's a lot of different options. There's lakes nearby too. I know Trillium Lake is really close to Mount Hood, so being able to stay in that area, you can have like a pretty cool experience. Being able to go to Portland within like 45 minutes, but also the mountain, but also some like trails and different lakes. So it's a really cool experience. There's not a lot of listings currently there, and the prices aren't crazy high. There's not too many jobs going on there, so that's one factor why it's not like packed all the time, but it's got so much else going for it, and the demand is clearly there by the numbers you can tell, and the fact that there's not too many listings, and it's relatively easy to get into. That's why it's landed at number 2. Have number 1 on our list for best short-term rental cities in Oregon. We have Lincoln City. So I could have chose a myriad of different beach towns for number 1. Honestly, I think if I looked at every beach town in Oregon, I would have found at least 4 of the top 5 would have been beach towns. So I didn't want to just put a bunch of different beach towns. For one reason, they are pretty competitive, and there are some beach towns that are fighting against short-term rentals. So I didn't want to just promote all the Oregon beach towns as great options. I also wanted to note that Lincoln City is the best of all the beach towns. So that's why I put them as number 1. I know Cannon Beach and Seaside are also pretty strong for the Airbnb short-term rental market as a whole. So just want to note that. But out of all the beach town cities, Lincoln City has the best revenues. It has the highest revenues compared to all the other cities we've mentioned, and compared to all the other beach cities. On top of this, Lincoln City is not too crazy expensive to buy a home. There are a lot of people that retire there. However, it's a lot of people keep them as second homes, not necessarily live there. There's not too much infrastructure when it comes to like big business or a lot of different grocers and stuff like that. But there is a lot to do there. They do have a pretty decent tourism community, and they have a large casino, Chinook Winds Casino, which is pretty cool. So between the casino, the beach, all the different beach restaurants, the fact that it's not too crazy to get into Lincoln City, it's probably cheaper than all the other 4 cities that I just named on this list. That's why it puts it at number 1. You can get into it relatively cheap. The city itself isn't super fond of the short-term rental market, but they've, not been able to enforce it as much, especially the people that live there and have another home there and want to be able to manage it like a little portfolio all in that same town. That's helped them kind of switch their tone on it. So now that it's benefiting actual residents, they're like, okay, we shouldn't necessarily turn this off. This is actually a pretty good money driver for what we have going on. Um, that's why it's landed at number one. But that was my list, guys. So top 5 cities in Oregon for short-term rentals. I gave you my reason. Without further ado, guys, that was the end of my video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the top 5 cities in Oregon for short-term rentals. Let me know if there's a city that you think I missed, or if there was, a better option that I overlooked in Oregon, or even what cities or what states you want me to try next. If you liked the video and think, hey, I really liked how you broke it down, the data you shared and everything like that, but I live in Kansas. Can you do it for my area, for my markets over here? Sure. Just drop a comment. I would love to, do more videos like this. All in all, thank you guys for clicking on the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe. It really motivates me to keep making more videos like this. But without further ado, have a good rest of your day. Peace.